So in the manner of saying that a student will be able to cover and have a holistic picture of the entire social science segments on the aspects of polity, history, theoretical analysis, and all that. Uh, there's a very important element in development studies masters where we actually encourage and also focus on field study. So very few of our courses also have field work component embedded in this, which again one can see and have a look on university on the program which is up on the web, where students get opportunity to visit the field outside Delhi, which is one of the courses which is environment, natural resource and development. Is a very important element of students being exposed to the hazards which are our environment faces. What are the mechanism and policy which are there in place on the behalf of government to protect such environment, to get into in the conservation and preservation environment, and the politics associated with this all. Particularly the focus is on to understand the harnessing of natural resources and how it disturbs the ecology around us. So that's a very important and very informative component of that course, Environment, Natural Resource Development Studies, and the fieldwork is really enabling. Beside this course, there are other courses also which basically deploys the field study, where students are encouraged to go outside and take field activity, and professors who are transacting that course, they have a very detailed plan chart out there. Those of you who would eventually be part of the MA SDS would get to know detail in the future. The point I'm trying to underline here is that fieldwork is a very integral component of MA program in development studies. And beside this, I think those of another important to know that the university, the Ambedkar University, at a university-wide level, there's a fee waiver for SC/ST and marginalized students, and which is of course SDS is also part of AUD, so it's obviously there is a fee waiver for SC/ST students. There's also fellowship we have, which is also university-wide fellowship, and hence it's also been followed in the School of Development Studies, which is one is merit fellowship, and then the welfare fellowship, and all these details one can actually look up to the program document and actually see. Between 2 years, there's a summer gap, summer vacation after finishing first years of master's development with 2 semesters, completing 2 semesters. In that summer gap, summer break, we encourage our students to take up internship, which is a very important component of completing the master's degree in development studies. We encourage our students, we help them to basically take up such internship work. We have a database where in past our students have taken internship. So that data set helps students to pursue and approach the same organization. At the same time, we also encourage students to get in touch with newer organizations, newer social movement body doing interesting work which suits their learning abilities. And this internship is field oriented, and it's a very important component of learning during the master's course in development studies. So I would say there's a huge emphasis on theoretical side, so that we could enable new researchers with analytical skills building up in our master's course. At the same time, it's just not confined to theoretical side. There's a continuous conscious emphasis on enabling our students exposed to the empirical side of what's going on in social sector, development sector through the components of field study. So I think with this thing in mind, it will be very beneficial to aspiring students to keep these perspectives in mind, so that it will help them to before applying for development studies. I would pass this to my colleague, Professor Ivy Dhar, as she is the PhD coordinator of SDS, to just speak few words on a PhD program. Ivy.
Thank you, Dr. Mogulan Bharti, and I welcome you all to this webinar. And as a coordinator of PhD program, I will just speak a few things about the very important features of the PhD program. The School of Development Studies has been running the PhD program for more than a decade. We have started the program in the year 2011. And as we know, and as Dr. Mogulan Bharti has already spoken a bit about the discipline of development studies, which draws heavily on various disciplines like economics, sociology, political science, and the faculty who are teaching in the development studies program are majorly from the social science discipline. Therefore, the PhD program in development studies has a very important and strong interdisciplinary research focus. So, which means that there is no dependency on a particular discipline. Rather, we try to emerge on a research which is interdependent on various disciplines. So, therefore, the program of development studies in PhD development studies is open to various emerging areas of research, and also we also orient our research which is important for policies, and therefore students who are from various academic backgrounds, they can pursue the PhD program. However, the preference is largely for those who are trained in social science discipline. Now, to speak a bit of the major components that we have, one is that one of the important component which is also there in our master's program is the field experience. So therefore, the School of Development Studies, it encourages engagement with research which are based in the field. That doesn't mean that those who would like to rely largely on the theoretical or kind of sources which are secondary based, they are not encouraged. But yes, we see an amalgamation of research which is field based as well as research which relies on the theoretical perspective, as well as drawing a lot of from the secondary sources. So a strong importance is also given to the methodology. So when you are enrolling yourself to a PhD program, one has to not only do a research but also to learn the tools that are important and that are applied in the research. So therefore, when anybody is enrolled in the program, they have to undergo a training for applying the research methods through various courses. And we have such courses like research methods is there, through which students, are acquainted with the social science research method. And also, while they develop their research synopsis, they take up some customized supervised course. In the customized supervised course, they work closely with a faculty who trains them to see the important aspects of the research and also to develop their skills for taking up that research, and also to kind of see what research methods are applicable to partake that research. So coming to some of the doctoral themes which are very much important and particularly of interest to the school are labor and development, entrepreneurship and society, peace, conflict and development, gender and development, social policy and development, social movements and development. And currently, so these are the broad themes, and currently our doctoral researchers are working on varied, topics, and some which I'm mentioning here are like some of them are working on caste, they're working on gender, they're working on political representation, they may be also working on education among the urban poor, indigenous narrative on land, industrial clusters, migrant women workers, policies and politics around environmental issues, gender institutions and political mobilization, workers and trade union and garment industry. So these are some of the themes that I have mentioned here. It's not possible to speak about all of them, but whatever it is, the scope is quite wide, and therefore the PhD program is relevant to the candidates who are not only interested in the themes that were mentioned here, but we are also welcome to kind of explore newer and lesser research themes. Now, coming to a bit, about the structure. So the Development Studies PhD program follows the UGC rules and regulation as directed by the university. And to complete the entire degree and the program, the first milestone that one has to do is to enroll in courses. So the doctoral researchers are required to complete a coursework of 16 credits, including a course on research and publication ethics, Additionally, in consultation with the Research Studies Committee of the school, there is a Research Studies Committee which prescribes courses, and as the as the candidate progress in the program, a doctoral supervisor is also appointed for each of the doctoral researcher, and this appointment is based on the subject expertise which is required for the topic of research. So there are few specific milestone which each doctoral researcher has to complete towards the full and final completion of the degree, which is which I've already mentioned, that is completion of a 16 credit coursework. And these 16 credit coursework, some of the courses are focused on the theoretical perspective, and also, as I mentioned, that research method is also an important course which every doctoral researcher has to complete. Apart from that, they have to develop a research synopsis, and for that they do a customized supervised course, and in consultation with the faculty they delve on the research topic which they are interested with, and they develop the research synopsis. And after all of this, towards the completion of the degree, they have to do some pre-submission requirements, and finally produce an original thesis and complete the PhD degree with a Viva Voice examination. So the AUD website has the details on all the PhD courses that are offered by the school. One can look into all of that, because the PhD program and the courses and the credits that are required, which is very much different from the MA courses. So therefore, one has to look into the course structure properly also, and what are the requirements which is prescribed. And apart from that, to talk a bit about the support which the university gives, as per the AUD norms, there is a scope for financial support. All PhD candidates who are not drawing upon any scholarship or fellowship, like UGC fellowship, JRF, SRF, and all of that is there. But those who are not drawing upon these kind of fellowship, they are eligible for a stipend, which is for a maximum duration of 3 years, though it has certain conditions based on the progress of the students. They are allowed to continue with the stipend. There is also a new scheme which has been started by the university, which is the AUD Research Excellence Scholarship, and that is awarded on the basis of merit. And these scholarships are similar slabs with the UGC JRF. Also, the PhD program gives opportunity to the doctoral researchers to enhance their academic skills, and that is also by following certain AUD norms. So therefore, they are involved as teaching assistants. However, this is subject to the need of the school. Now, information on the eligibility of the PhD program, the fees of the program, the availability of the seats, etc., they are all available on the website. So I'm not elaborating on those components. Lastly, I would say that, several students who have been enrolled in our PhD program, today they are successful doctorates, and they also have a very, very promising career. Some are employed as faculty, others are working in the development sector. So therefore, the PhD program in development studies has a scope for anybody who is interested in research, especially in social science discipline, and primarily who is trying to look into a particularly research component which needs a interdisciplinary focus. So with this, I would like to hand over my this webinar to Dr.
Thank you, Ivy.
Yeah.
May I now request Dr. Anirban to come in?
Anirban, before you come, can I just add something to what Ivy said?
Yes.
Please.
Just two things. You talked about this Nonmet fellowship, which is 16,000 here, no? Which is, I think,
16,000.
Yes, and second thing is AUDMRF. That is a merit-based. Those people who join us, and depending on their merits, in the admission process. They are given, and there are other riders, of course, attached to it. But that is equivalent to the UGC fellowship, which is it must be said. And I see Babu MS is there, who is looking after. He's also Dean RNC. Please do add to it, in the sense that because it's about PhD program, you please need to add something to it, because this is something very important from our side. Those who are wanting to join, if those who are having JRF, they are pretty cool about it, because that concern, economic things are not there. But some still would like to know about AUDMRF a little bit. So could you please just add briefly about what is it and why this is important?
Yeah. So Mogalan, shall I add some points about AUDMRF?
I think so. Yes. I think this will help.
Thanks to Dean SS.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Thanks to Dean SS, Sri Sandosh. This is an important scheme. University has introduced this merit research fellowship scheme, and now currently we have 2 batches of AUDMRF holders, that is AUD Merit Research Fellowships scheme holders. According to this particular scheme, what AUD is doing is that the university is offering merit research fellowships to PhD scholars, and this is purely based on merit in the sense that like how you have performed and appeared in the interview and selection process of a particular year. That means if you are applying in School of Development Studies, in the interview, if there are 10 candidates, suppose appearing for the interview, and if there is a merit list prepared, for every 5 candidates, there will be 1 AUDMRF fellowship available. That means if there are 10 candidates appearing for the interview and 6 or 7 people are shortlisted, the school will have, that program will have 2 AUDMRF fellows. Whoever comes in the merit list in the first and second or third in that order. It can also happen that you may think that like only those people who are topping in topping as first or second or third in the list will be getting. It may not be the case. Sometimes some of the fellows who are topping in the interview and selection process and coming as first or second, they may be having UGC fellowship, or they may be having ICSSR fellowship, or they may be having some other fellowship. So in that case, they will surrender, and they will tell that, like, I will be availing the UGC fellowship, I may not be requiring this particular fellowship. So that will, then the AUDMRF fellowship will go to the next eligible person. So it can happen that almost in the last 2 or 3 years, 2 years, data shows us that almost all the university students are getting a reasonable amount of fellowship, because many of the students, they will be having their own UGC fellowship or ICSSR fellowship, or some of the candidates, they may be having salary protection, and they must have topped in the list, but it will obviously go to another person who doesn't have a fellowship. And to add that, one point which has already highlighted by Dr. Sandosh, that AUDMRF fellowship is equivalent to UGC fellowship in all aspects. That means equal amount of fellowship, equal amount of HRA, equal amount of contingency grant allowance per year. So in all ways, it is on a par with UGC fellowship, and the students for the last 2 years, they are getting, we are having around 40 students already in our list who are receiving this fellowship. The university's aim right now is to have 100 fellowships, and after 100 fellowships, university will be reviewing. So that means this year also, we have almost all the programs will get the benefit of having AUDMRF fellowship. And I would like to add one more point, that apart from all these things, university also offers a fellowship for all those people who are registered for the PhD program, which is not on a par with UGC fellowship or AUDMR fellowship, but that is also a reasonably good amount for a student. So that means almost all the PhD students who are registered with the university are going to get a fellowship from the university if they are not receiving any other fellowship from any other agency. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Babu.
Sorry to Anirban, it's yours now. The floor is yours. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No issues. Thank you, Santosh. So let me talk a bit about the kind of a broad trajectory which the school has moved in, and what are the kinds of broad career paths through which the students have moved through. Dr. Ivither talked about the PhD students and what kind of programs, what kind of options, career options and career paths that they are opting for. Therefore, let me not talk about the PhD students. Let me focus on the master students. What are the kinds of broad career paths that they are opting for? Interestingly, so in the initial years when the school had begun and the program was being offered, honestly speaking, I think we were also trying to understand because it was a very new program and very new space, not just in the university, but in the Indian context, it was a very distinct kind of a space. And therefore, unlike some of the very well-established and older disciplines, development studies definitely did not have a set career paths. So therefore, some of that point of time when we were going through it, and I think alongside the students, this was also a question which was in the mind of all of us as faculty or as research associates, whoever were involved with this program, that what are the kinds of career paths that the students are going to find out. And we knew about some career options were rather more clearer to us, and therefore, and of course, even today, when we look into it, we see many of the students who are actually opting for those career options which we thought we knew, and those are the kinds of career paths we thought that many students may like to opt for. However, what has been very interesting, and it has been a lot of learning for, I think, all of us, that we have seen that over the years that students have actually charted their own course, charted their own career paths. And as a result, we have also realized as being part of the school that there are many career options which we did not at that point of time probably did not envision in that specific way, that these are also the career options which students may opt for. Now, let me talk about certain options and some of the things which, and I'd request my colleagues to actually add on because in case I may miss out some details and others can actually add on to that. Now, one of the career options which we were rather more familiar about, and that as in the development sector, which is typically a civil society organization kind of a space. And when we talk about civil society kind of organization, and when we talk about achievement, I suppose that the general perception is that that getting placed in a very large, well-recognized organization with a very well-established history of its own, and also a good pay structure and things like that, that's generally considered as a kind of a big achievement. But what has been very interesting is that many of the students who have completed the masters, while many of them have joined such big organizations, including international organization as well, but many of them have actually worked at the grassroots level, in the community level organization, and in the development sector, in the civil society organization, and have contributed immensely towards these kind of spaces. Now, when I talk about the civil society, I think it is important to differentiate between two categories, at least two categories of space. One is very typically what is known as a non-governmental organization. That's one thing which we were rather more familiar about. We saw many of the students opting for those options. But one thing which we realized as students kept graduating from this program and students kept joining different career options, another option that we found out many students opting for were joining different social movement, or in the sense that they were being part of some of the labor collective or some of the developmental collective and working towards that, and different parts of the country. And in that sense of the term, I think it was an interesting kind of an observation that while in terms of when we typically think about an achievement, we usually tend to think about it in terms of a big, like typically known as brand, joining a big brand and things like that. But interestingly, while of course joining big brands are very important, but students have made very significant contribution by joining these very organizations or movements, which are not so hard of, but at the same time, they have contributed immensely towards the understanding of the development sector. And this has been, I think, one of the very important aspects of it. A second aspect, and which I thought we had familiarity with it, and I think this was one of the space where we saw many students joining in. It's also it's a broadly which is known as the CSR, or the corporate social responsibility sector, and that was one of the space where which is probably more remunerative in that sense of the term, but at the same time, other than the idea of being in terms of the remunerative, I think students from the school have contributed towards bringing newer and newer thoughts towards even this sector, which appears to be rather well established and well known in that way, right? One other thing, let me point it out, and I'm not talking about the students who are going into higher education, academic research and things like that. Maybe another colleague, some other colleague can point it out. But let me talk about one other thing, and I think which was a very interesting kind of a realization for, I think, many of us at least who are involved with this. What we realized that other than these typical spaces which we thought that we knew about, civil society, the non-governmental organization, or the corporate social responsibility, there's another space which we began as SDS was evolving. We started seeing another space which began evolving around that group, and we saw many of our students joining those kind of organizations. Some of them are registered as not-for-profit organization. Some of them are registered as private limited companies, and those are the organizations which has organized their work specifically around social sector research. And there are many such organizations today. While of course typically we think about know about AUDMR kind of organization, but that might have been the organization which showed the path. But there are many other organizations where our students have worked, where our students have interned, where our students have done their field work, dissertation field works, and a wide variety of things. So one last thing that I can point it out, and I will stop there, and that we saw some restricted number of students who came in to the development sector after completing, let's say, a graduation in journalism and mass communication. Many of them we saw that after completing their development studies master degree, they actually decided to go back and create a new space or join a new space, which is largely oriented towards developmental journalism. And that's something which has been a very interesting space. Some of our students have joined who basically work for different, some of them are with mainstream media organizations, some of them are with alternate media organization, but many of them have actually joined these kind of spaces, which I think is a rather evolving space, to put it in that way. So let me end with this here, and the rest of the ideas regarding higher education and various other academic research, maybe another colleague of mine can point it out. Yeah. Thank you, Mogilan. Over to you.
Thank you, Nirban. May I request Dr. Nandini to come in and speak a bit about the program?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bharti. So I'm going to try and compare the development studies master's degree in particular at Ambedkar University, Delhi, with comparable degrees elsewhere, primarily internationally. Now, the discipline of development studies as a separate discipline, development studies departments in particular, that is, in relative terms, in our context, in the Indian context, are a recent phenomenon. But of course, the themes that we work around, themes such as labor studies, gender studies, the political economy of development, the political sociology of development, these are ideas that have very much been engaged with in mainstream social science disciplines and departments. And so the pursuit of these themes has been, of course, present. What is relatively recent in our context is that the creation of interdisciplinary departments is recent. And as my colleagues, Professor Bharti and Professor Dhar have already discussed, these ideas are now covered under development studies, and there's both a theoretical and an empirical emphasis in our teaching, both at the master's and at the PhD level. Now, if I were to compare our master's degree with degrees available internationally, very importantly, I must state that the structure of our program compares very, very well with degrees in development studies in, say, for instance, the United Kingdom, in Australia. A key kind of framework that you'll see, say, for instance, in development studies master's program at SOAS in the United Kingdom is theoretical training, core courses being offered, and elective courses being offered. And that is fundamentally the kind of structure that we also follow. But it must be added that additionally, what we do also place an emphasis on is the following. In addition to core theoretical courses that we offer in, say, year one, which are, say, for instance, related to development theory or the political economy of development, our program, keeping in mind the fact that we have a very diverse student audience, we also have courses that try to address fundamental theoretical queries, such as queries related to what are the basics of theoretical perspectives that you encounter in the process of engaging with development studies. So we have a course titled Introduction to Theoretical Perspectives, for instance, where key modules are related to, for instance, Marxism, understanding the bare bones, the basics, the fundamentals of Marxist analysis, understanding what do we mean by post-structuralism, for instance, as a thematic theoretical idea. So some key theoretical terms that show up in literature elsewhere, which we might not always be familiar with because we have because we might be coming from varied disciplinary backgrounds. Our students, for instance, come from economics, political science, English literature, mathematics, Hindi literature, maybe also there might be students from engineering. So it's a very, very diverse student audience that we engage with. And so to bring everyone on board, we have courses that try to speak to fundamental, basic theoretical ideas to bring everyone on the same page. Now, these kinds of theoretical, basic, fundamental training programs you might not find in master's programs in other places. You might not also find courses on research methods, literally taking you through the bare bones of qualitative and quantitative research, really taking you through the fundamentals of ideas that you need to engage with. So our master's program, in a very thorough way, engages with ideas related to research methods also. In fact, we have 2 courses, Research Methods 1, Research Methods 2, so to really go into the detail of the ideas in research methods. And of course, as Professor Bharti already discussed, there is, in addition to a very strong emphasis on theoretical material, we also have an internship course, which is an evaluated course, which students do between their year 1 and year 2 of the program, of the master's program. And there is some field component in some of the courses otherwise as well. So on the whole, what I would say is that our program, our master's program, compares very, very well with programs elsewhere in the world. And over and above that, there are, in fact, there's a lot of emphasis on bringing everyone on board, students from a diverse background, to draw them out and to ensure that they are able to engage with the coursework that they are required to engage with. So these are very carefully thought through components of the master's program. And I think that's an important idea to keep in mind when you consider this master's program. So with that, I'll hand over back to Professor Bharti.
Thank you, Nandini. Does anybody want to come in and fill in if something is lacking? I think we have covered roundly aspects of our master's and PhD program, both in other aspects of what it entails to seek learning in this school. If we are forgetting something, I think we all are individually available through our email ID, which are publicly displayed on the university website. Those who are aspiring students, feel free to contact us, especially for PhD. Dr. Ividhar is the coordinator for Masters and the coordinator. Feel free to write to us if you need further, some sort of guidance and more information. Dean Deepita Chakravarti is also available on email. Please feel free to write to any one of us. Our email IDs are displayed in public domain, the university website. So I think, Santosh, this is from our side, and if something is lacking, please let us know and we can.
No, I think it's been very comprehensive. I think this is what is the expectation. I think broadly speaking, we have touched upon all of these points that we wanted to be eliminated and highlighted, and basically talking to the aspiring students. I also would like to add that this is some bit about our university. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University, Delhi, and there is no reason to have any confusion about it being a college under Delhi University. This confusion has been pretty dominant, in fact, many times. But therefore, I've been saying in all these webinars that we are not affiliating universities. It's an individual idea, and there are multiple campuses. I said it elsewhere, I'm saying it again. Also, it's a state university, therefore 85% seats are reserved for Delhi students, and 15% seats are reserved for. This must be said many times. Just because we are in Delhi, people have these confusions. But let me dispel those confusions. 85% seats everywhere in BA, MA, and PhD programs everywhere. All three spaces. Of course, in development studies we do not have a BA component, but in masters and PhD here again, 85% seats are reserved for the students of Delhi. When I say students of Delhi, who are these students of Delhi? Though, say for example, if any student is aspiring to join MA in development studies, and if you have done your graduation from any of the colleges of Delhi, I think you're eligible for that 85%. Similarly, if you are looking for a seat in BA program, and if you've done your schooling from schools of Delhi, then you are Delhi wala. So Delhi wala is not because of domicile, Delhi wala is because of your last educational qualification. So these are things which must be made very clear. There is a college in Delhi University which is called Dr. Ambedkar College, and there is many a time the people confuse that it maybe is part of Delhi University. What is the status and all that? Yeah, but so let there be no confusion that this is independent idea. It's a state university of Delhi government. 85% seats are reserved for Delhi students and 15% are for the outside Delhi. This is very important, and I think most of the questions and the emphasis that we wanted to be highlighted in this webinar have been already done. So with this, I would like to conclude this session, and that conclusion will not be complete unless and until I say thank you very much, all of you. And I'm sorry to interrupt your summer vacation, because I think we thought that probably this is what we need to do, because I think in the COVID times, probably in some spaces there were number of seats were still up for the grab, but this time we want to fill all those. And so thank you very much once again for your time.
Thank you much, Santosh.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you lot, all of you, Santosh especially. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you.
Thank you.